Hi, Tyler Dinner Fidelity here at Big Sound 2015. Almost at the last person here, Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hello, everyone.
Brian is N.A. Blur on HeadFi, and I've known Brian for years and years. He's helped me out with the K701 burn-in testing here.
Some blind testing.
We did some blind testing when I was the victim, and this morning he was the victim. Anyway, he got a chance to go through the whole rigmarole here at Big Sound 2015, and we're going to have a chat with him about that. First, Brian, how was your blind testing experience this morning?
I really enjoyed the blind test. The initial test that we did with some a wide varying impedance headphone. It was a little bit easier to identify.
The HD800?
Yep, the HD800. You could really pick out the amps we tested. But then when we moved on to something like the HE1000, really flat impedance curve, I basically couldn't discern them without more practice.
Very, very difficult.
Very extensive practice. And it was a fun experience, but I was a little surprised at that result.
And what was your sense of, how did it feel to go through the blind testing? What was your experience like?
In general, the feel was, obviously with the HD800, it was more of, I got a sense of accomplishment like I could. And then after that, I really felt that it doesn't capture necessarily everything that's needed or wanted even with a particular headphone. You know, it's difficult when you switch between three, in our case, headphone amplifiers to really start to nail down in a short period of time. So it's almost like you need either more information, a different technique. But overall, I mean, the experience was surprising to me more than anything.
Cool. All right, and I agree. It's very, very difficult. I'll be writing a pretty long article at some point about the difficulties of blind testing and when it's useful and when it's not. At least in my opinion. And then Brian spent quite a bit of time going through all the headphones. Let's stand up and take a look at the headphones, and you can kind of go through them one by one.
So obviously, if you're not familiar, this is the LCD3. It's just a phaser
with
version.
phaser.
Yeah. One of my classic or favorite headphones of all time. I really like them. They're much, I think, lighter. Even the LCD2 Bamboo is nice, but they're really solid from bass to treble. They're fun to listen to. They're crisp and clear. And not too amp particular, I felt. Obviously, there were some amps pairings that I felt that were stronger, but one of my favorites.
Okay.
And then I believe we move on to the Enigma Acoustics
Dharma.
Dharma, yeah, interesting headphone. Obviously, pretty different design than almost anything else out there. And this was probably the most particular headphone when it came to pairing with an amp, I felt. There were only a couple amps that made it shine that I felt. And I have to look at my paperwork to tell you which one I enjoyed the most.
We will. I will publish the notes on his paper in his article, and the unusual thing about this headphone is that it has two drivers in it: a regular dynamic driver and then an electret. And the impedance curve actually does vary quite widely, so it's not surprising that it was sensitive to which amp it was hooked up to. But in general, did you think the sound was good, bad, indifferent?
I would say, if I had to label it just good, bad, I would say bad. I mean, it wasn't bad, it was just really particular. You know, none of these headphones sound like, oh my gosh, I'd just throw them away bad.
Right.
But I personally, even if I had the money, wouldn't purchase that headphone.
Okay, and then on to the Audio Zenith PM-X2.
Absolutely. Modified headphone?
This is modified by Alex Zietz, yeah, and then quite heavily modified, actually.
And as you guys probably know, that the PM3 and PM2 are pretty popular now. This modified one, it sounds really nice. It's a planar. And it wasn't as sensitive to amp pairings as the Enigma Acoustics, I felt. Good sounding, great fit and comfort, wonderful build quality on that, but not my favorite headphone.
What would you say the weaknesses of it were?
I don't think it was a dynamic sounding as like the HD800 paired with a good amp, or the Ether When you get a good synergy going on, those are really fun, fantastic. You can sit down for long periods. This one just didn't stand out to me to where I'd really want to enjoy it for long periods of time.
Okay, and then the HD800,
Yeah.
of course, modified.
This one, most people are going to be very familiar with, at least seeing it around. It's been around for several years now. Once again, it was one of the surprising headphones for me. I've been a big fan of these. Unmodified, I think I agree with Ty often, is that they're a little too bright, hard to listen to, especially at louder volumes. But these modded versions sound a little bit more pleasing on the high end, and they paired very well with a couple particular amps, and ended up being one of my favorite sets of headphones
Cool.
to listen to.
Next up is the Hi-Fi Man HE1000s.
Yeah, pretty much one of the newest planar headphones out there. Getting a lot of hype. Great build quality. Love the design. Pretty neat. They look giant on your head. They don't look very big, and when you hold them up, but when you put them on your head, it looks like you're wearing a speaker strapped to your head. Surprising. At higher volumes, slightly above listening level, I think they sounded really great. Not quite as dynamic as the HD800, let's say. You know, not quite maybe as punchy on the low end, and maybe a little softer. But if you're looking for like a headphone that is more pleasing on a wide variety of sources, the HE1000 it was a surprise. It is a great sounding headphone.
Yeah. And on to the ethers, which are right here.
So the ether, I believe this outer shell is 3D printed, kind of an awesome thing using some new technologies. I had heard these at the HeadFi meet in San Francisco recently and was not impressed. And so much so that I almost thought there was something wrong with that particular set of headphones. But these are totally the opposite. These sound great with a wide variety of sources. In particular, like the Woo and the Bioelectric amps, I think they really shine. Maybe not as detailed as the LCD3, but for me they would be one of my choices because they're just easier to listen to for long periods of time. Absolutely a surprising headphone. One of my favorites for sure, and super light, which is something they aim for. I mean, you're not going to get tired wearing those all day.
Yeah, they're very light and very comfortable. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wonderful headphone.
And then on the other end of the spectrum of very light and very comfortable is the the Abyss, which is very unusual headphone and very weighty and unusual ergonomically.
I like that it's an eclectic headphone. I think that's cool that people go out on a limb and design something a little strange and enigmatic. But for me, the first problem was the fit. I can't adjust it small enough to seal properly on my head. That was a bit of a bummer. It was close. And just a little pressure was able to get a pretty good seal, but that was my first disappointment with these headphones. Just a clearly aesthetics and fit issue. As far as the sound, really pretty good, dynamic, punchy, fun, pretty quick. Was a little bit of surprising. Not my favorite headphone for a long shot by a long shot, primarily because of the fit. I just think a few design changes would make this a better headphone. But cool sounding and punchy, definitely punchy headphone.
Okay, and then the Stax SR009 and SR007.
Yeah, I've had the blessing to be able to listen to the SR009 on the headphone or the Blue Hawaii Special Edition that I think you had in at one point.
Yeah.
And we felt that was one of the best pairings. I think at the time that was probably the best pairing in the room. Really dynamic sounding, not too punchy on the low end, so not tiring, but really revealing and fast was really where you noticed it. Extremely fast and fun sounding. On this setup, however, I felt that the SR007 MK2, the black pair here, just sounds a little more dynamic. I almost feel and truly believe that it has a little more frequency component to it. It's more involving, more fun. This particular pairing with the SR009 and this amp, I don't know if it was the amp or the headphone or what, but it definitely wasn't my favorite of the two.
Okay.
And that was a definite surprise.
And then last but not least, we do have the LCD-X here.
LCD-X was the last headphone I tried. Great fit. Ergonomics, I believe it's got a little different design. It's like a metal beveling system and ear cup instead of the wood. Really nice sounding. Maybe slightly more dynamic than the Ether, not quite as bright as the, if you want to call the LCD3 bright, not quite as revealing on the treble, but I thought it was another fantastic headphone.
Cool.
And I was really pleased with it.
Cool. And then you did have time to play around with the amplifiers and pairings. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your favorite pairings with amplifiers?
So there were some tricky pairings, some surprising pairings, as revealed in our A/B testing. You guys will probably read about a little bit later. The Bakun amp was pretty selective as far as impedance, and so that one was pretty easy to eliminate. It was just a little wild with the higher impedance headphones like the HD800, but I did end up really liking the HD800 with the Vioelectric amp. The amp itself has some other characteristics that aren't perfect, but the synergy, the dynamics, the ability to show, let the HD800 shine, and from bass to treble, really I think was the best, in my opinion, with my ears, with the Vioelectric amp, and that was a great synergy. Another one that I really enjoyed was the Ether with the Woo. That was just a fantastic sounding amp. The Woo being a tube amp, needs a little warming up, as we noticed. It took probably 10 minutes before it kind of settled down. Definitely noticed some issues there, but once it settled down, it was just a great pairing. My third pairing was, I had to go with the LCD3, and I believe, let's see, which did I prefer? Yeah, also on the Vioelectric amp, I felt that the LCD3 just sounded really special and just fully dynamic and fun, and it didn't have any weaknesses. It didn't eliminate anything of the headphone. That was a good pairing. I was surprised that I ended up liking that one as much, but I did.
Cool. And your overall impression of the room and the experience at Big Sound 2015?
A pretty awesome experience. It's not too often, I'm going to say once in a lifetime experience to get a lot of high-end gear, great headphones, and be able to compare them. Do some A/B testing, which we've always liked, and all in one sitting. It's an amazing opportunity and a fun experience. I appreciate it, Tyler. It was awesome.
Well, you're most welcome, Brian. It's good to see you here again in town, and maybe we'll see more of Brian in the future. He and I talked a little bit about gaming headphones. He's evidently an avid gamer.
I would say more than an avid gamer.
And we may do something in the future with that. We'll have to see how that pans out, but it's always good to see you, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler.
And we'll see you guys tomorrow for the last people when some of the guys from Headroom come over in the morning and play around with the gear. Till then, we'll see you around.